Hello everybody and welcome back to WCS Premier League Season 2. We are in the round of 32 Group C where we just saw our first match of the day with Red 2-1 over Mystery. Who is a mystery to a lot of us, but you just casted that first series. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, Mystery played pretty well, to be honest. I feel like he needs to kind of mix in some robo play, at least for a variation. But overall, he seems like, mechanically a good player. Macro, micro, he really didn't slip up that much. It's just his build orders were a little off. He, obviously game 2 fell behind a little bit with the cannon rush, but overall he's playing pretty well.
And with Red in his first Premier League appearance in 2 years, what are your thoughts on Red's gameplay so far?
Red also playing very well. I feel like he played really safe. He's never been too aggressive of a player, but he played defensive, which is his style. He played reactive, and the first game was a little awkward just because of the build and it was such a strange thing. But game 2, he showed really good cannon defense, and then he kind of just was way ahead at that point. In game 3, he just played really solid, to be honest.
Well, Red stated that he doesn't really mind who he goes up against in our next match of the day. It'll be MarineLord or ViOlet. He did state that he prefers MarineLord to do well, to cheer on for more Europeans, but either way, this is going to be an exciting match for a variety of reasons. MarineLord and ViOlet. ViOlet is a player that we have seen for a very, very long time now. He's namely had a lot of success in 2012, but then he was kind of off the scene for a little bit because of some visa issues, and he's creeping back into it. On Team Envious now, what do you think, Huck? Do you think that he'll be showing us the form that he's been in the past, or do you think he'll struggle a little bit to get back in that form as we saw Stardust struggle a little bit?
I personally think ViOlet's going to struggle just a little bit. I don't know his condition, but I feel like he's a little bit weaker right now, just from Facebook posts and stuff like that, I want to say. But it's going to be more of a question of what MarineLord we see. He doesn't have that much offline experience. Are we going to see, if he plays as well as he does online, he's probably going to be the best person in this group. But will he get to that point? I'm not sure.
Exactly, and MarineLord, you just mentioned this earlier in the cast. He's a player that so many pro players have touted and praised for his skills, like you said, online, but he just hasn't been able to show that on the bigger stage. He has his chance here at WCS Premier League. Do you think we're going to be able to see a similar sort of fate as we saw Petraeus make it out onto the round of 16? We'll be able to see MarineLord do the same here.
I mean, this is more like my own personal belief into him. It's hard to say. I hope so. I'm going to go on a limb and say he will be able to perform. I think he'll be first in the group, and I think we're going to see a new star born today in MarineLord.
Well, it's time to find out. Will we see a new star born today, or will ViOlet show us the prowess that he showed us back in 2012? The casters for this next game are going to be Nathanius and Kane.
Thank you very much, Sue. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Sam, to cast.
Absolutely.
Finally, you're going to cast some StarCraft. You ready?
I am ready to cast some StarCraft.
Yeah. It's going to be a good TVZ. I think these are both players that we're pretty familiar with. You spent a lot of time practicing in Europe. You familiar with MarineLord, I'd imagine?
Yep.
Play against them a fair amount?
I did. I also played against ViOlet a fair amount, and both of these guys, they can bring some pretty good play. MarineLord right now is known as one of the up-and-coming Terrans for sure in Europe right now.
Yeah.
A lot of pros recognize him as one of those guys that has the potential to be one of the best foreigners. So I hope that he's able to show that tonight, but we'll see.
A bit of a Petraeus, right? The pro gamers know that he's good, but maybe he doesn't get as much recognition on the international scale when it comes to results. But I guess that's because this is his Premier League debut, and you got to imagine he looks a little nervous. You think maybe?
I think he looks a little nervous, but I know him personally, and he's a pretty confident guy. I don't think he'll be overly worried.
Yeah. It seems like he's jamming to some good tunes, something that you yourself are a bit of an expert at. So.
If I had to guess, I'd say some Justin Bieber, maybe.
All right. What do you think of our map picks? We're gonna go from Echo for the first map. Do you like this map for TVZ?
It's a hard map to hold a fourth for the Zerg. The Terran can do some really strong 3-base pushes out of that, but I do like it. I think it's a pretty standard map.
Yeah, ViOlet can do some aggressive stuff too, so he's always a wild card when you see him play Zerg versus Terran. A lot of the games that I've seen him, especially against Terran, he's not shy to open with those fast 2-base roach pushes, and it kind of makes being aggressive against him weird. But we'll have to see, because we are loaded into game number 1. We're just about ready to start this match off. Looks like MarineLord just needs something checked very quickly. But I'm very interested to see where this series goes, because to me, ViOlet is a player that has like these really hot streaks, and then he has like these very long cold periods. Like he's not super consistent for either the positive or the negative side of his play.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. You know, he did take a break in, what was it, 2013, I think.
Yeah.
And he finally got a visa after that and came to America. But during that time period, he did take some time off, and as a professional player, that can be pretty hard to come back from. But he has made he's made a pretty good return, and he's getting some better results recently. So hopefully he can kind of continue that hot streak that he's been kind of going on, you know?
Yeah, he's been a mainstay in WCS Premier for most of 2014. As I said, once he got his athlete visa, he was training with Polt last year in Atlanta, and now, you know, he did get Premier for Season 1. He came in and he played his matches out of the Cologne studio. He got a little bit sick, though. It wasn't the ideal scenario for him to be competing under, but he's back for this season, seems healthy, and I think that makes it very... it's a very tricky, interesting situation as far as like how well he's prepared for this, how well he's feeling. And I mean, you guess also comes down to a bit like how MarineLord feeling, because he also had quite a bit of traveling to do to get here. Both of these guys, I think.
Yeah, ViOlet actually flew in from Korea. So I know that he's probably feeling a bit of jet lag. But, you know, I spoke to him today and a bit this morning, and he seems to be in good spirits. He seems to be quite energetic and ready to go today.
Yeah, I guess it's one of the things people probably don't notice as much when you have international tournaments like this. You know, MarineLord, how often does he actually have to make such long trips before competing in tournaments? ViOlet definitely has that experience under his belt, having played WCS so many times. And, you know, we talked about this. We were like looking through some of his results before this match, and he hasn't really played too many Terran versus Zergs. Like, he hasn't played a TVZ on LAN since the Gamers Assembly. I think it was basically like close to something like a BYOC tournament that was happening alongside the WCS season final.
Yeah, I actually do remember that tournament. And yeah, so he hasn't played many Zergs recently. He hasn't played a Zerg to qualify for Challenger or for Premier yet. So we don't really know much about his TVZ. And like Mystery last series, that could come into his favor here. We don't really know what he likes to do. We don't know if he likes to mech or play macro or cheese. We have no idea what to expect from MarineLord other than, you know, solid, good play from him.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because when you look at the French scene of StarCraft, you know, MarineLord has a lot of really good practice partners for Terran vs. Protoss. You have guys like Bilbo, Petit Drogo. These are top-tier French Protoss players, and those guys have been innovating PvZ in Europe for a while. And then you've got guys like Daishi that you can play with, and for Terran versus Terran, you know, you're running into guys like Happy a lot. But, you know, in the Zerg department, the old French Zerg, you know, who he lost to in that tournament that we were just discussing was Firecake, and Firecake's kind of like almost has like that lone wolf thing going on. You know, he keeps to himself a bit, and he's still doing very well though. The best results of the French players, but a lot of people say that, you know, pure skill-wise, they think MarineLord is someone that could end up overtaking him this year as far as results go.
Yeah, absolutely. Firecake is one of those Zergs that can, you know, play really well, but MarineLord, I think that he does have a lot of potential in him. Whenever I see him play, even though it's not against Zerg a lot of the time, I always see really good play out of him. It seems like his decision-making is always on point. He has good map awareness, good multitasking. Just overall, really good play from him.
Yeah, it was interesting because for me, the sloppiest games that I saw MarineLord play were Terran versus Terran, and when he competed in a couple of online cups like Fragbite Masters, struggling against players like Happy, but then, you know, coming in and winning against Happy and Challenger, it seems like maybe it's something he's tightened up. But there's no other Terrans in this group. He has to rely mostly on that Terran versus Zerg that he hasn't played too much on LAN. And as you guys can see, we are now finally loaded in. We're ready to kick off the second series here at the World Championship Series Premier League Group C. In the top left position, representing Team Millennium and France, he's MarineLord. And his opponent in the bottom right position, representing Envious, he is ViOlet. So talk to me about this map. You said, you know, the third base, of course, if you kill the rocks, and the Terran has a really good protection on that third base. Does this, do you like this then more for mech? Is this a map where you'd only play bio?
You know, I think it is a very good mech map, just because, like you mentioned, between the natural and third base, there is kind of one pathway that you can attack, and if you knock down the rocks at the third, it's very, very hard for Zerg to attack in that path, because you can set up siege tanks, you can have Thors there. It's really hard for Zerg to attack into a Terran on this map. So I do think that mech is a real possibility on this map. I'm not sure if MarineLord will feel comfortable doing that first game of the series.
I was gonna say, like, have you played against MarineLord's mech before? Is he someone that when you've played against him or when you've seen him play that he's used it a lot? Like, I guess we were saying we haven't seen a whole lot of his land play versus Zerg, so maybe he mixes it up differently than his online competitions.
Yeah, I actually had a chance to speak to him last night a little bit, and he says that he can play both bio and mech. He does prefer bio a little bit at the moment, but I think on this map we probably will see some bio play out of him.
Yeah, the thing is, like, when you have that block off, even if you're not playing mech, right, I guess it's more difficult to do run-bys if you block those rocks, and for parade push styles, you're always pushing past your 3 bases, so it can make it a little bit more difficult for the Zerg to actually get in there. But if you're ViOlet in that case, and you know that the 3rd base is harder to hit, is there any way that you can try to use any features of this map specifically to gain an edge against that, or does ViOlet just try to play greedy himself?
Well, you know what? The rush distance, I was just looking, and the rush distance on this map is actually pretty short. So I think that we could even see like an early cheese, maybe a roach baneling, or something like that, that could kind of kill MarineLord early before he gets to that parade push kind of point in the game, you know, where he's able to get into his comfort zone a little.
Yeah. How about ViOlet's opening? Like, this is a pretty fast queen build, and you know, is this just to defend the Reaper? Does MarineLord 2-axe ever? Like, I feel like these are all questions like ViOlet's taking into account. He doesn't want to go hatch first, but you know, there must be a reason. What does he gain from this opening?
I think that he just wants to be very safe. If MarineLord did choose to do a 2-axe, he would be very good with the pool first. And even now, we see the Reaper coming in, and ViOlet has no trouble defending that with that early queen.
Yeah, so can't take any damage from that. It's a really nice position to be in, since MarineLord has committed to 3 Reaper opening, and because he's gone for the pool first, by the time the 3rd Reaper gets over there, there's 3 queens on the map, which means he can have 1 bounce between the 2 bases, and you know, that, at least it seems to me as a Terran player, like it's a bit more difficult to make aggression work against that. Does ViOlet look like he has his setup with the gas? Is it just speed?
I think he should probably get 100 gas and then pull off maybe 2 or 3 guys off of gas. I think it's just for speed.
Okay. ViOlet is the guy that's done some weird stuff, mostly with gas and like Zerg versus Zerg, but I'm always on edge when this happens. The Reapers are coming up trying to do a bit of damage to this queen, of course. As long as you don't lose the Reaper, it'll regenerate that health eventually. Now that the second queen shows up at this base, the 3rd queen overall makes it much more difficult to do anything. ViOlet didn't build any Zerglings though. So by opening a pool first but not getting any lings, does being able to spend that larva on the drones make up for the later hatchery?
Absolutely it does. And MarineLord also went for kind of an uneconomic opening. He went 3 Reapers, and ViOlet didn't take any damage. So he's feeling quite good right now. He's not taking any damage, he's safe, and now he can kind of go into a macro game. But we do see that Rotorn coming down right now.
Yeah, this is what I was kind of worried about when I was thinking about the way that ViOlet likes to play. He busts out aggressive builds like this pretty regularly, and you know, to your point, you said short rush distance on the map, the roaches can get across pretty quickly. He opened with the roach horn, but he didn't go for any lair or evo chambers, so it's not looking like it's even a posture for like a 1-1 type push. This could just be like a big roach shove. At what point would he be starting a baneling nest for us to know that this is like a big committed attack? Probably
right after he makes these roaches. But the thing is, he doesn't have Zergling speed, so it would take a long time for those Zerglings to get across the map.
So just roaches then, probably?
It looks like just roaches, maybe even a defensive roach opener, but that's a few too many roaches to be defensive. I think he has to do something with these roaches.
It gets tricky, because MarineLord's going into Banshees, and the roaches can't hit the Banshees. And because of how late the lair tech is for ViOlet, if he doesn't do damage with these roaches, I feel like he could be just trying to play catch-up against Cloaked Banshees for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. And when MarineLord sees these roaches, I think he'll think it's a roach baneling, and so he'll probably stay defensive with that Banshee.
So at the very least, he can buy himself some time with that, because this is definitely something. You see this as a Terran player, and you're like, okay, I really need to. You kind of go into panic mode since his wall isn't up. He doesn't have that bunker ready yet. He, instead of actually building more Hellions, queues up 2 Widow Mines. So he wants everything defensively that he can get. And I mean, killing the Overlord is nice because he can't really put anything else up behind this. We see that he's just building drones and getting the evolution chambers. Yeah. But you're right. He actually did. He forces MarineLord to keep everything at home, and the Banshee sees, okay, there's no Banelings or Zerglings behind us.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to get much damage done with this, but I don't think he really wanted to. He just wanted to occupy MarineLord with these roaches while he gets everything set up at home.
Yeah, so far he kills 4 SCVs and loses all of the roaches. As far as a trade goes, he's lost 1,000 resources of roaches for 500 resources of you know, the couple SCVs, the depots, and he did pick off 2 Hellions in the midst of all this. But how about this counterplay? He's actually bringing the mines across the map too with his 2 Marines. He's actually brought all of his standing army. I think he possibly expects that ViOlet was being greedy behind this.
Yeah, absolutely. He wants to get something done here. He wants to kill maybe a few drones or maybe a couple queens or something like that.
Yeah, and if he scans, I feel like with this force he could also do a really good job of clearing up the creep. There are still 4 active tumors on the northeast side of the creep spread, so he won't completely shut it down, but it's definitely annoying because the queens don't want to engage into this just yet.
Yeah, the Widow Mines do kill a couple roaches there. So I think MarineLord's just looking to kind of force some units out of ViOlet instead of drones.
Yeah, occupy him in sort of the same way that you were mentioning earlier. That lair is halfway done. There's no Spore Crawler here. The queens have been pushed away. He's zoned them out of the 3rd base, and it's just those roaches over there to try to defend. And a couple of them are still quite low on health. I mean, but 3 more factories are on the way from MarineLord, so he is going to commit to a mech build on this map.
Very interesting, yeah. And those Banshees are getting a lot of damage done right now.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing for MarineLord, like the not knowing exactly the lair timing, like if he's picked up on this, the fact that there's no Overseer, then he's got to feel really comfortable taking this 3rd because Mutalisks are so far away. All he needs to do are just build the Banshees, crank out the Hellions, and get that 3rd, since he doesn't have to worry about building missile turrets anytime soon.
Yeah, we do see a Banshee going down there. So ViOlet started 2 Evo chambers, but he only got the +1 carapace. Do you think that's a mistake, or do you think that's on purpose?
I mean, I guess at this point, maybe he wasn't sure if he was playing versus Bio or Mech, but he starts up the +1 range, so and that 4th hatchery, so I'd have to imagine he's got to be looking at that mech now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he knows it's mech now, somehow. Maybe by the Hellion count or maybe by the Cloak Banshees or something like that. But I think he does know that it's mech, so he is going to go into, it looks like Roach play, some form of Roach play, either Roach Hydra or Roach Viper maybe. We see the Infestation Pit coming down, so I am inclined to think that it might be Hive Tech.
Yeah, so if he goes for the Hive Tech, most likely then going for maybe Roach Hydra Viper, or do you like Ultralisk playing more against mech?
I think a lot of European Zergs recently are doing Ultra play. I'm not sure if ViOlet is caught up on the meta or if he has something planned for versus mech, but I would expect to see Ultralisks out of this for sure.
All right. Well, with the lair, you know, he didn't even start up a Spire, so the Thors aren't going to be the most impactful. By having this high Banshee count, there's really nothing that can deal with this until he gets Hydras on the map, but he didn't even get a Hydralist in. Like, he's just rushing straight up to Hive. At least it looks like it.
And he's going to get a cancel on this 4th base here, which is very good. There's a couple transfuses, but I don't think it'll be enough.
Yeah, I mean, he lets it finish. He's still pouring the transfuses on. The Queens don't have any energy to transfuse themselves. Still loses the hatch, and the Banshees just fly away. Oh, tags 1 on the end.
That was very good from MarineLord. You kind of need that 4th base gas for Vipers or Ultralisks. Like, you need 8 gas, you know?
Yeah, and he just started the Hydralist den, too. He started the Hive, but when we look at the kind of pushes that meching Terran players make, like the Roaches are going for the counter. There is this tank here. It is exposed. He might even dive on top of this Thor, too. So MarineLord, perhaps investing a bit too much into the aggressive play, didn't have as much defensively set up. Definitely sets him behind, but the nice thing about the way this army is set up is the Banshees are still, there's still no answer for them in this push.
Yeah, and I think that MarineLord will be able to defend eventually. It's just how many losses he'll take from this, because the rallying factory units out of the factories will clean this up, I think, but it's just how many SCVs are going to go down before that actually happens.
Yeah, he's grabbed 7 in total, and at 61 workers, MarineLord, you know, it's for mech more so about getting the gas income than it is about the minerals, because he can always use the mules for the minerals, and those units take so long to build that even with less SCVs mining minerals, you usually get the money you need for the next wave. It's all about having the gases on the 3rd. The Roach did pick off a few SCVs there, but ViOlet's already setting himself up for what looks like another big Roach push. He's got 19 outside this base. Do you think MarineLord actually has enough here to defend this?
It's going to be tough. He is making a lot of siege tanks now, so I think that he will eventually have enough.
Why do you think he hasn't broken down the rocks, though? That's weird to me. Like, that's just it's a wall for him. It's a free wall.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a bit of a mistake. That's one of the features that we were talking about on this map, why it's so good for mech, because you can break down those 3rd base rocks.
Yeah, but now he has to move himself between several positions in order to defend this. And the Banshee count is good, but now the Vipers are coming out. ViOlet has bought himself a lot of time with the aggressive play that he's thrown towards him. Can he make a push when these Vipers finish, or is he just trying to stall for time? You mentioned those 4th base gases. He's only just now retaken it.
Yeah, I think that ViOlet is really low on the gas count right now. He's banking a lot of minerals, but he doesn't have enough gas for Hydralisks or Roaches or anything like that.
But there's nothing he could spend these pure minerals on that would be useful in this scenario.
Right, the Zerglings will die to the Hellbats pretty much instantaneously, and we do see a push coming to this 4th base now.
Yeah, he's moving forward with the Banshees. He does have Hydras this time, but if those tanks siege themselves, I mean, it all comes down to the Vipers at that point.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think ViOlet's composition here is going to kind of get him into trouble in the late game. Like, I don't know if you really want Roach Hydra Viper versus what MarineLord is doing. If MarineLord pushes out, I think it's okay, like he just did. But if MarineLord kind of turtles up and plays very defensively...
Keep the tanks spread, I'd imagine.
Exactly, yes, keep the tank spread. I think that it might be really hard for ViOlet to push in.
Yeah. And when I look at this as a Terran player, it's all about, without a high Viking count, if those tanks are clumped up enough for 2 or 3 Blinding Clouds to cover most of them, then it's almost impossible to win the fight because your army is all clumped. You're completely blind. You can't hit the Roaches and the Hydralisks, so he needs to stay spread out. Here come the Vipers. ViOlet's going to try to make a push right here.
Yeah, and he's a little clumped up in the back there, but the Blinding Clouds aren't getting as much done as ViOlet would like.
Yeah, I mean, the tanks that are situated on the third base and behind where the Thor is are instrumental in being able to hit this, especially since the Banshees are unaffected by the Blinding Cloud. This push from ViOlet will still clean up a lot of expensive units. He starts to focus fire down the Banshees. Only 2 remaining, but, you know, those 2 Banshees hold this push off as another wave of Roaches coming out. But I think the most important part here is that MarineLord is starting to get Vikings out, and he's finishing up 2 more starports. So with the Vipers now having a bit of counterplay introduced, I feel like another push like this would be a lot more difficult for ViOlet to take.
Yeah, I think if ViOlet tried to push in again, it wouldn't work, but we do see him starting to upgrade Flying Locusts, actually.
Ooh. Have you experimented with this much versus meching Terran? Do you think this is something that can be useful in this scenario?
I think on this map, I think it's quite good if you kind of go in from that natural base, like put the Swarm Host outside the natural.
Oh, yeah, because you can go up and around from the side onto those geysers.
Exactly, yes, yeah. So I think it could be pretty strong there. I just don't know how good it would be if MarineLord actually made a push at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he throws a couple of Hellions by, and this can give him a read on the army. Like, he kills 5 drones, and, you know, for 6 or so Hellions, it's not worth the resources. He gets some information. He sees, okay, still mostly Roaches. But now a couple of Swarm Hosts are being started. Just 2 for now for ViOlet. We really haven't seen a lot of Swarm Host usage in the World Championship Series yet, especially since that the patch came in that kind of changed the way that they work. But he still has this very active Roach force that's on the map. I think for ViOlet, you got to imagine this is like the biggest fear must be the Terran's 4th base, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Once a mech Terran kind of gets that 4th base established and maybe a couple planetaries defending in key areas, it gets really, really hard to attack into them.
Yeah. In this situation as Zerg, is the biggest worry the mech push itself, or is it maybe is he worried about air transition now more than he's worried about dealing with the actual mech army?
That's a hard question to answer. I think that ViOlet right now is probably a little bit worried about a push as we see 11 Spine Crawlers finishing up in the middle of the map.
Yeah,
but
the Swarm Hosts are so expensive on supply, it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a smart decision just in case MarineLord does push out, and we do see him unsieging some units right now, but I think it might just be to take that 4th.
I mean, this spread on the tanks, like, it doesn't really look like you can hit more than 1 Blinding Cloud on any one of them, and he still never broke down these rocks, so the Roaches are able to just run straight into 3rd base, trying to snipe Missile Turret. He doesn't have Burrow, but I guess he's trying to open the door for those Locusts later on. And I don't even think losing SCVs is that bad when you have this many command centers from MarineLord.
No, and he's actually quite high on the SCV count for a mech Terran right now. He's at 66, and he's going to want to lower that down a lot soon.
I mean, he's got 5 command centers on the way, Kane.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, if he turns them, half of them into orbitals, he's got cash money from those mules.
I think the one at the 3rd he'll actually turn into a planetary. And yeah, he definitely should break down those rocks really soon, though. That's definitely a mistake.
It's like you could just have that wall there, and it would take the Roaches a long time to actually break through that. He delayed the command center at the 3rd as well. So that actually has put him in a kind of awkward spot. He's finishing up a 4th and a 5th starport, it looks like, though.
Yep.
Getting blue flame, just so he can help kill those drones faster. He runs up to this hatchery. He's like, oh, there's no drones for me to kill. Okay. ViOlet actually doesn't have a crazy amount of drones. He opened up supply by getting the Swarm Hosts and all those spines. Now we see the Flying Locusts come in. They would cause self-splash damage. He's just going to try to focus on this command center. MarineLord's not reacting. Oh,
there he goes. Okay, just in time.
Yeah, that's as long as the duration wave is, those Locusts are still very powerful. If they get in and you don't notice, they'll kill that command center super, super fast. So that's, I guess, ViOlet's attempt to keep MarineLord at home. But now he's unsieging some of his tanks. It looks like he's getting ready to move out and actually take a fight.
Yeah. Do you think he can push into all these Spine Crawlers, though? I feel like if ViOlet backs up...
I mean, I feel like as long as he gets the Viper kills with there's only 3 Vipers. If he kills them with the close to a dozen Vikings that he has, he's got 9 here. If those Vikings are able to kill the Vipers, I don't see how the tanks are answered by this army.
Yep, and into the 3rd we see another Locust wave. It's going to kill maybe a couple supply depots and a turret.
He insta-lifted the command center. He's like, nope, not taking that chance this time. I'm really focused on the army. But he swings around towards the northeast. He wants to try to hit MarineLord's 4th. That planetary that's morphing isn't ready yet. He just focuses it down. Preemptive Blinding Cloud actually keeps him from sieging up on it, and then he just backs off.
Yeah, ViOlet's playing this very well. He's attacking from multiple angles, which you want to do versus mech player. You want to make them move around and kind of make them mess up, force mistakes out of them. So he's playing this kind of textbook, you know?
Yeah, I mean, with the transition to Greater Spire, are the Vipers going to be enough to open that up for him?
I'm not sure. Oh, we see a good abduct there from the
Yeah,
Viper.
he's starting to do some serious work. We see that that increased range on how far away you can cast Blinding Cloud being quite useful, as the Vikings were not in position to stop him. MarineLord, I guess having the Vikings control group with the Banshees makes things a little weird, but then the next wave of Locust comes by. This third base was actually never resituated, and he might even just kill this building command center. MarineLord took so long to actually get back to work on this, kills the tank too, and forces the cancel.
Yeah, you can tell ViOlet has really been practicing versus mech. It seems like he knows exactly the transitions that he wants to do, and he's taking bases all over the map.
I'm very surprised to see like it's such cool usage of these swarm hosts. Like, he's actually making something of them when they're not really used too much. But the Banshee's starting to chase him down makes things tricky. But the army's out of position, so he comes on the fourth base once again and picking off siege tanks. The Vikings just not in a place where they can actually stop the Blinding Clouds.
Absolutely, yeah. This is really, really neat play from ViOlet. We do see a push. It looks like MarineLord kind of has had enough of this. He wants to push out, maybe clear some creep or maybe kill a base.
Well, this should be the best opportunity, right? Like, the Corruptors are being built, and he just finished the Greater Spire. If he can get there before Broodlords are on the map, like, can this army actually be stopped?
ViOlet has such a big bank that I think maybe the first couple armies that he builds will die. But I think that if MarineLord continues to push, I think ViOlet will be able to clean it up eventually.
Yeah, I guess it really comes down to how many Broodlords he decides to make, right? Because he needs to keep that Corruptor count healthy to deal with the Vikings. The Spines will certainly buy him some time, though. MarineLord does have all those starports, but losing the fourth base and having his third hurt so much really makes things tricky. He gets a nice siege position on the northeast base, but ViOlet's got another base in the southwest, and he's taking the bottom left corner base, too.
And we do see the Broodlords coming in, but I'm a little bit worried.
Is 11 too many?
I think so, because there's so many Vikings, right? That I think the Vikings might just overwhelm all the Corruptors, all the Broodlords.
With the Thor's support, too, it gets very tricky.
Yeah, and we only see a few Hydras left that might actually die to these Banshees here if he doesn't get away.
Yeah, another wave of Locusts gets sent over towards the third, too, while still doing all this harassment, forces the SCVs to run away once again, getting to work on this command center, actually getting it very low on health. He snipes the third base!
Look how fast that dives. That's incredible. Only, it looks like 7 Swarm Hosts there.
MarineLord's like, oh, this isn't enough Locusts to kill it, but let me just pull the SCVs away, and it's like, nope, your command center's gone, dude.
Yeah, 3/3 Locusts are pretty strong.
I mean, he has enough command centers to replace them. It's just, you know, at this point, he's bleeding out stuff that's supposed to be building into a late-game bank. And usually as a mech player, you get to that max. You know, he's been trying to make this Raven transition as well for Seeker Missile and Point Defense Drone, but he hasn't been able to max out on it because he doesn't actually have enough minerals to spend his gas. And now he's about to see the Broodlords. He scans, and with all the Corruptors here, even with Point Defense Drone, I think the Broodlords could actually get it right on top of this army. He's just going to go right for it. The Corruptors have pushed him completely away, and now the Broodlords have actually made this work a bit overzealous of MarineLord to try to push in here.
Yeah, and I think what I really like there is that ViOlet was patient. He waited until MarineLord was in the perfect spot, and then he went and attacked, which is very nice.
MarineLord seemed completely caught off guard by the Broodlords, especially since, like, you know, the Vikings are good against the Vipers, but against this many Corruptors and those Broodlords, it was never going to work. GG ViOlet takes game number 1 here for our second match here, Group C in the World Championship Series Premier League. Pretty interesting game because, I mean, I liked the start from MarineLord. He got the kills on the Roaches. He didn't really lose that much, and he had the Banshee harass coupled with the 3 command center. But it seemed like ViOlet just did a really good job of using the Swarm Hosts and the Blinding Clouds to just keep MarineLord from maxing out. Yeah,
you can tell that this was not ViOlet's first time playing against mech. The way he used the Swarm Host and the mobility,
like this was
everything
so
was
good.
just, he was multitasking, he was attacking multiple places. Everything by ViOlet that game, you knew that he had an end game plan.
Yeah, because it's just so nice that the Locusts require a bit of an answer, and then he comes over here, the preemptive Blinding Clouds, he's like, I know the tanks aren't siege, but if I put them there, I force them to keep moving, and that buys me enough time to back off. So I really like the usage of Blinding Clouds, and it never seemed like MarineLord's Vikings were in a good forward position to prevent them. Because honestly, there weren't a crazy number of Hydralisks here. Like, I feel like he could have gotten 1 or 2 volleys off to actually kill these Vipers, but he never actually took that opportunity.
Well, the second map will be Coda, it looks like.
How do you like this one for ZvT?
I think this is actually a good map for Terran. I think that especially early game, with Reaper harass and stuff like that, they can get quite a bit of damage done. And then when it goes into the mid game, it's kind of the same story as Echo. Maybe not quite as prevalent, but
the third's a bit more open on Coda, right?
Yeah, definitely. And the fourth base is not as hard to defend for Zerg.
Yeah, you can get your fourth in the corner, which is always nice, as opposed to on Echo. You kind of have to expand closer towards your opponent.
Yep.
So this could also be for that same reason alone, maybe a reason why MarineLord would play Bio. I don't think there were inherently any like big mistakes as far as the mech setup was going. He just didn't seem to be able to react fast enough, because I feel like part of it is having the Banshees on the same hotkey as the Vikings, because when he pulled the Banshees to try to kill the Swarm hosts, the Vikings get pulled, then he tries to pull the Vikings to get the Vipers, and he never actually killed the Swarm hosts, so they were a constant threat that honestly did a lot more than I expected them to in that game.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I don't think there are any like major issues with MarineLord's mech play, which is why I don't think we'll be seeing it again from him, at least in this series. I think that when you see a player like ViOlet go so confidently up against your play...
That's like a good point. It's like, MarineLord played his mech really well, which is why I don't think he'll do it again, because he knows, if ViOlet can handle it that well, he might as well just try to play Bio.
Yep, and I think MarineLord's Bio play is actually very strong. Especially on this map, like you said, we take the Zergs take the fourth base in the corner, right? So I think we might see maybe a Prade push up the middle and then a drop to that fourth base to kind of get the Zerg out of position.
It's easier to deal with those setups as a Terran, because when you're playing mech, and I think it makes a lot of sense on a map like Echo, because usually your push, you can go by the fourth on your way to the third or to the main, where you would try to end the game. But it gets so interesting since ViOlet kind of likes playing with roaches. Like, that is not a build. Like, if ViOlet were to know beforehand that MarineLord was going to play Bio that game, I still think that it's something that he would do to just make that roach push, and then instead of, as you said, going for that fast +1 carapace and then kind of going for the attack, he could have just gone into melee. Like, he had options open.
Yeah, and watching QXE versus ViOlet in Challenger League this season, ViOlet actually opened up roaches every single game of that series.
Yeah, and he got a good bop or two against QXE as far as just being able to do early damage. And despite the fact that MarineLord held on against that, it was ViOlet's late game control that brought him back into it. But we are now loaded into game number 2 of our second best of 3 of the day here. You're watching the World Championship Series Premier League Group C. In the top left position of Coda, we have the Millennium French Terran in blue. He's MarineLord. His opponent in the bottom right, representing Team NVUS, he is ViOlet.
Is ViOlet's team NVUS or NVUS?
I say it wrong all the time.
What do you say?
I didn't actually clarify. It's written as NVUS, but I guess you could say NVUS. There's someone that will just be like, Nate, don't ever say it like that again at some point.
Of course.
Eventually.
Game.
But well, it needs a quick pause. I guess doesn't want the light on top of him over there.
I don't blame him. Sometimes it's pretty hard to see.
Yeah. So, all right, gonna be taken care of, and we're right back into it. But shout out to the French crowd, though. The French guys have been really, really awesome to watch in StarCraft. The French players, I think, have been stepping it up a lot over the last year. Players like Lilbo, Pete Drogo, MarineLord, and then
Firecake.
And Firecake as well. And the French community has been a blast. When we took the Season 1 finals to Poitiers, and then being able to go to DreamHack for tour, the crowd there was absolutely fantastic. I know that probably not all of them watching here, because I know O Gaming is also doing, they're on top of everything right now.
Of course, yeah. But no, you're absolutely right. The French crowd is very loud. They're very excitable. It's really, really cool.
They're trying to wrestle that mantle of most hyped crowd away from Toronto.
I don't think they'll be able to, though. I think the Toronto crowd is going to be pretty awesome.
The Toronto fans are already planning their ways to just lock that spot down as most hyped crowd when we go for Season 2.
Oh, absolutely.
That's one of the things I'm most hyped about. It's like, yeah, you're hyped about the games, but just being able to see how excited everybody over there gets is really something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll definitely have some chants planned and stuff like that, so definitely stop on by if you're in Toronto.
Yeah. ViOlet opened up pool first again, and MarineLord opens up with this Reaper with the fast second depot, which says to me that he wants to build more than one Reaper. But this time ViOlet actually builds the Lings. So maybe he was expecting... is it like a mind game?
Yes. What's going to happen here is that MarineLord's going to show up to ViOlet's base and see the same thing. He's going to see a Queen and no Lings. And he's going to think, oh, he just did the same thing as the first game. But meanwhile, 6 Lings are going to be making their way to MarineLord's base and hoping to get a cancel on that TC.
Yeah, this is so tricky. Because, like, the Lings are going to go through, and I feel like the Reaper's going to pass by them, though, right? He should be able to see, or Violet's trying to hide them. The Reaper goes to the tower, though, so he knows.
Yeah, that's a mistake. I think Violet should have
Got
put his
a long
Lings
way around?
Yeah, long way around, for sure.
Especially against 3 Reapers, even if he had gotten by. Like, he needs to be hidden until the very last moment because, well, that command center starts a bit later, so it's actually more difficult to get there as it starts to deny it. And then with that many Reapers, it's hard to get there without a Reaper popping up and seeing you.
Yes, and now I think
Yeah, even builds on the high ground. No
yeah.
chances taken.
MarineLord's just going to keep that Reaper back home, maybe, or he'll actually move out with him.
Well, by building it on the high ground, I guess it allows him to move out, so he doesn't have to worry about defending the building command center. And when Violet sees these Reapers move out, he should maybe send it, and then the 3rd Reaper will get the link. So this is like he's like counter mind gaming him by building the command center on the high ground.
Yeah, I think that was a huge mistake by Violet going past that Zelnaga tower.
He lost a lot of the potency of that early start. Now the Reapers are going to put some pressure on already getting a drone kill. Considering the pool first gets a 2nd drone, this is quite nice for...
3rd drone?
This is really nice for MarineLord.
Could he get a 4th, maybe? 4th drone,
Oh my
yeah.
god.
This is absolutely terrible
Tell
for
you what,
Violet.
man, if this is me in a ladder game and I'm getting this many drone kills, I'm ready to party. This is nice.
If this is me in a ladder game, I'm pretty mad at this point.
You're
I'm pretty mad.
fearing for your keyboard's life.
Yeah.
So he does clean up the Lings outside of his base because he built the command center on the high ground. He was aware, he prepared, and now he starts up his 3rd command center with that worker count. Like killing that many drones puts them so close that the mule gives a nice economic position for MarineLord, especially since he's about to be on 2 orbitals and then soon after 3 orbitals. And he still goes for the fast start port because he's keeping in the back of his mind that ever-present threat of roaches.
Yeah.
And Violet's only just now starting to take gas.
And I think MarineLord did see that it was gasless. And actually, off of gasless openers, roach openers are very, very common. So I think that he will probably go into Banshee, or maybe like a Marine Drop or something like that.
Yeah, I honestly, I think that Banshee, if you watching the way that Violet played, especially as you mentioned against QXU, we saw so much Roach play. Like, if you go for the Banshee, you can at the very least write off, like, dying to Roaches. Like, unless you make a huge error, your Banshees will always give you that sustained damage over time where they're going to kill the Roaches. It's all about can you not take too much damage before they die. And I really like that Banshee play for that reason alone. He does start up the Banshee. And because of the drones that he killed, like, can Violet even get up enough Roaches to beat for a threat after losing 4 drones at the start?
I don't think so. I think that the Roaches will purely be defensive in this game, if he even decides to.
Yeah. He
But
does
yeah.
go for 2 Evos, so he could try to base this off like a delayed 1-1 push, maybe.
And now one thing Violet will have going for him, though, is the creep threat. It's going to be pretty sick this game, because he has 3 queens. The Hellions aren't at that point where they can really kill queens or creep tumors efficiently at this point.
Yeah, he doesn't have enough to bowl this over. When the Banshee comes out, perhaps, that still is a big issue, the late lair, once again. He's starting the Roach Warren, but he doesn't have any Spore Crawlers either. And even though MarineLord didn't invest into Cloak this game, the Banshee can still be a big threat when you have the Hellions and Reapers there, because then the Queens, they can only attack one thing at a time.
Yeah, and he's only getting the +1 range for the Roaches at this point. Do you think it's going to be maybe a +1 Roach speed timing?
I mean, at this point, I'd be asking you, man. It's
It definitely looks like it, I think.
it makes sense. Like, I think it's a bit easier in a weird way because he's going for Stim now, so he's less likely to continuously produce Banshees. In fact, he's going to go into a Viking now after actually canceled his 2nd Banshee, it looks like. So he didn't want to really commit it heavily on that at all. And now we see the Banshee trying to do some damage in the main base. Banshees beat Queens 1v1, but then backup shows up. He's got the Transfuse, so safe for now. But, that's a safety Banshee. Now he's going to get a siege tank. He really does not want to take any chances whatsoever against a Roach push.
Yeah, and did he see that Roach run at the front? I don't think that... Oh, he did.
Okay, well, that
Yeah.
alone should tell him, like, just keep the tank. Like, don't move the tank around too much. Like, find a nice spot, settle down, build a family.
Make a home.
Yeah, don't move the tank too much because you never know when those Roaches are going to show up.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that Violet... I think he will go through with the 1-1 push.
Yeah.
But the way that MarineLord has set up and the way the early game went, I don't see it doing that much damage.
So as a Zerg player then for Violet, the most it seems that he could do with this, since the timing of the stim and eventually the medevacs and the rest of the barracks, is delay the 3rd base. Is delaying the 3rd with this upgrade advantage that he has enough?
I don't
Like,
think so.
He planted it down. Like, maybe he can push this 3rd command center back up if he pushed with Roaches, but Like, would that even be enough? Because he's only now just starting 6 more roaches. He only has 6 on the map. I don't even know if that's enough to force a lift off of the third.
I'm not so sure either. One thing that ViOlet does have going for him, though, is MarineLord's upgrades are very late. He just started 1-1, whereas ViOlet's 1-1 is almost finishing.
So, one of the things that we've occasionally seen are 2-2 roach hydra pushes, and I was about to ask about that, but then he starts Baneling Nest.
Right.
So now I'm not even sure. Maybe he's just going to do that thing where he plays with a good number of roaches mixed into his regular Ling Bane composition.
It could be. I know in one game versus QXC in the Challenger League match, he did go for a Roach Baneling composition, so that is something that we could see here.
Yeah, it makes it so tricky. It's one of the things, like, ViOlet is good in these standard scenarios, and, like, especially that last game against the mech. But then when you play Bio versus him, you get these weird things. Like, he's just now starting his +1 melee. He's just now getting Zergling speed. So he'll have access to the full range of ground composition, but he doesn't have any, like, you know, powerful mid-game tech. Like, his Baneling Nest is done, but he doesn't have Baneling speed. He doesn't have a Spire. There's no Infestation Pit, so he's relying purely on Roach Ling Bane to defend anything that MarineLord throws at him. Do you feel that's enough to stop like a 1-1 push if he makes out here in the next like couple minutes?
I feel like he's kind of all over the place here. I feel like he's getting every upgrade for Roaches, Lings, whatever, and he's not really committing to one thing yet, you know? I feel like he's trying to do too many things at once.
He's keeping his options open.
Yeah, and StarCraft is a game where you can't really do that so much. You need to commit. You can't be afraid.
I guess the creep spread can give him a little bit of leeway, since if he takes a fight with Roach Baneling on creep, that's when Roach Baneling I think is most powerful. It's very difficult to run away from those speedy units. And we see MarineLord building big walls, does not want to worry about run-bys. And those late upgrades starting to finish up. A lot of upgrades finishing at once, getting his Combat Shield, 1-1, Concussive Shell. I think trickling Marauders in against something like this is pretty solid with the Roaches, but is there enough here for ViOlet to actually defend this?
I think there will be, but it's going to take a while for those Roaches to get into the main.
Yeah, the Lings without the +1 attack yet, especially not very strong against an army like this, and even having that Hellion tucked in behind. So now the Roaches show up, but he killed a few drones. Looks like he lost one of the medevacs, but he escapes with... Oh,
he needs to get out of there.
Oh, no, run,
run. Can it reach it? Can it reach it?
No.
Oh! Yeah, that's very unfortunate. That definitely wasn't worth it for MarineLord.
You need to escape, and the Banelings get a nice connection on these Marines, so suddenly it's all down to these siege tanks to defend the third base, but the Zerglings get right on top of him. He doesn't... Okay, tries to target fire down half the Banelings, but there's no bio here.
Yeah, his army was all in that medevac.
That was all of his army supply, and since he killed both medevacs, he had no threat of being harassed, and he's able to make this huge counter push. He's cleaned up the entire third base. Like, the SCVs are alive, but they're not mining. He doesn't have the income there. He's trying to bring this bio, but he doesn't even have the upgrade advantage that you'd normally be playing off of against aggressive pushes like this.
Yeah, and I mean, he's camping the production now. I think that ViOlet's actually done it this game.
SCVs are being pulled off the line. I think the only thing that's missing to really, solidify an end to this game are the Banelings. There's 2 more coming up now. But, he's like pulling so many SCVs to try and defend against this. Even with 3 command centers, he's losing an absurd amount of economy. And as long as the Zerg stays on top of the production, I really don't see a way that he's supposed to be able to take this. He's trying to repair the 3rd command center, but more and more Banelings are being built. ViOlet looking to take a 2-0 to start off his day here in WCS Premier League. Quite nice.
Yeah, I feel like MarineLord just really messed up with those 2 medevacs. I can't believe that.
Yeah, not pulling them away. It's all about having that threat of bringing the damage to your opponent that forces them to stay at home. But ViOlet takes the series 2-0 after a phenomenal play against MarineLord's mech, and then really just handling himself quite well despite the early damage against the Reapers, despite the building the Roaches, but not really being able to make too much of it against that third base. And even with the siege tanks, MarineLord, it just seemed like he spread himself very thin against an army composition that was all about having one big fight.
Exactly. Yeah, he was going to go for one push no matter what. And, I mean, it worked because MarineLord put those 2 medevacs out on the map, and they didn't pay off. They didn't get hardly anything done.
What did he really need to do with that drop to stop ViOlet from making that push, though?
Like you said, you need to keep the medevacs alive and have that threat,
Yeah.
Because that way, the Zerg has to keep some units at home. But he didn't have to keep anything at home. He took all of his units.
Because he's an Immutalisk, right? So there's no way for him to kill the medevacs unless he lets it sit there, the Queen just kills it.
Right, and I mean, 6 Lings won't, or 6 or 10 Lings, or however much you leave at home, aren't going to do much versus 2 medevacs. You need to leave maybe a few Roaches, few Lings, few Banelings.
Yeah, it makes it very, very difficult to deal with, but losing the medevacs just kind of opened up a wormhole for ViOlet to push. Let's hear his thoughts. He's on the main stage with Smix.
Thank you very much, Nathanius. Congratulations, ViOlet. What a strong start to the day with the 2-0 over MarineLord. You know, Violet, a lot of people were talking about this group. They were actually hyping up MarineLord a lot, but you just seem really confident in your gameplay. You didn't seem nervous at all. Did you expect this to be a 2-0 for you?
Well, actually a little nervous, and after first game, I think I had the Roach Hydra Viper timing push. After it depends, I get a little confused because I thought I can crush. After that, I just trying to be calm down, playing, and after I win still, I need to think about next game. And next game, I practice different style, different opening, but I just do yellow my build, and he's usually turn. I don't have experience. First Reaper go to Jelaga Tower in the middle of the map checking and then go. So I just trying to YOLO again, and he found my 6 juggling and he kill them all, and he building CC on his lamp, and he 2 Reaper kill all out of my drone, and I got just lost a lot, and he everything figured out what I'm gonna do, but I still win.
Yeah, and I mean, your YOLO clearly worked. You were able to win. And up next, you're going to be playing Ret, a Zerg player. You just played a Terran, and it'll be a ZvZ coming up for you next. How are you feeling in that particular matchup?
ZvP is my favorite matchup, and I played a lot versus Red in the tournament since a long time, and it's kind of happy to meet him again in the tournament. It will be a fun match, and I think I can win.
Well, how have you been in general? I know that you recently joined the team Envious. How has that been going for you? And I know you were in Premier League last season. Unfortunately, you weren't able to make it to the top 16, and you have a shot now. So how has practice been going? How are you doing?
So far, I have a lot of bad situation in my life, like family, or I got accident and had under surgery. And after I joined Team Envious, I have a lot of bad situations. So I don't play much. I don't stream much. So I kind of feel bad for my sponsor in Team Envious. I have to say sorry. I want to say sorry. And after I pass my group today, I will stream more. I will be more communicated with my fans, with the stream or other maybe entertaining stuff. So just be ready.
All right, well, thank you very much, Violet, and congrats again on winning your first match of the day. For those of you out there who aren't aware, we do have ticket sales for our Season 2 finals in Toronto. We have a second wave available, so make sure to check that out if you haven't already. And keep your feedback coming, #WCS on social media. We'll be back after this quick break with our first elimination match of Group C. It'll be MarineLord versus Mystery, so stay tuned.
I move objects with my mind. I climb the tallest mountains and slay dragons. I defend my galaxy from ruthless aliens. I am never bored. I am stronger. I am faster. I am G1.